Hello, my dear friends. How are you? I hope I find you all in good health and safe and sound. Welcome. Thank you for joining me here. I'm Ari Thurger, and as you can read by the title of this video, I'm here to tell you that the Irminsul is not a Viking Age religious symbol, neither Old Norse nor Scandinavian or anything of the sort. But let us get straight to the point. This is was another question that was posed by some of my patrons more recently, and I just want to take the opportunity, if you don't mind, to apologize to my patrons, as in this past half a year, maybe a little bit more than that, I've been quite absent and I wasn't yet able to answer all of your questions and read all of your messages and comments and such. I'm still in the long process of changing everything in my life, as I have also explained on another video, a previous video. It's taking too long, more than I thought it would. It's surprisingly difficult and with too many bureaucratic developments, so my apologies for the absence. I promise you it will be over soon. Everything will be over soon. Now, here we go. Irminsul is not one of those symbols people tattoo a lot of, obviously, unlike the Aegisialmur and Vegvisir, but sometimes we do see people with that tattoo, and speaking about the Irminsul as if it were an Old Norse religious symbol or a symbol present in the belief systems of Iron Age Scandinavia. The Irminsul is not Norse. It doesn't appear in the Eddas, nor in Icelandic sagas, nor on Scandinavian runestones, neither in, literary sources, nor in archaeological evidences. It's not part of the Norse mythological corpus either. The Irminsul was a sacred Saxon symbol, not Anglo-Saxon, mind you, but Saxon, let's say Old Saxon, possibly linked to Irmin, an obscure continental Germanic deity, not Scandinavian, associated with Tewas. Possibly, there's little evidences to it anyway, or a world column or central pillar of sorts. There are accounts from the 9th century which tells us the Saxons worshipped a wooden pillar called Irminsul, which they believed held up the sky. Something between totem and the cosmic tree, maybe, but nothing to do with Odin, Thor, or Freya, as I've heard a couple of times before. And I say totem for a better understanding, just a better understanding. But the case of totemism and evidences for it in European context is not that simple to determine, but that may be a subject for another time. So let's move on. Anyway, Charlemagne destroyed it, the Irminsul, in 772 during the forced Christianization of Saxony. This can be read in Annales Regni Francorum. And so that was it. That's just it. Until the Romantic nationalists of the 19th century recycled it as an Aryan Germanic symbol, mixing myth, ideology, and a great deal of fantasy. As is often the case, the far right adopted it with swastikas and racial delusions, quite a lot of delusions. Himmler himself and his companions resurrected it as an emblem of ancestral Aryan spirituality. Today, it continues to be used by neo-Nazis and pro-fascist neo-pagans. Of course, you may ask, what about Yggdrasil and such? What about that in Viking Age contexts? Well, Yggdrasil is one thing. It has nothing to do with Irminsul, nor there are evidences of an actual physical religious symbol for Yggdrasil as used in religious practice or anything of the sort. Maybe in a specific tapestry, but that's a subject for another time. Yggdrasil is expressed in literary sources. This does not appear in Norse sites, carvings, or texts. The Irminsul is not a Viking symbol of any sort. So if someone tells you that Irminsul is ancient Nordic, send them this video, right? But let me develop just a little bit more on this, as the first minutes were for those who never have the patience to actually stay a while and listen and learn something, hopefully. The symbol in question was actually developed by a Volkische enthusiast who later would become an early member of the SS Annenhabe Forschungs- und Lehrgemeinschaft, which is a pseudo-scientific Nazi party community of investigation focused on ancestry. And progressively the symbol was then, or became, an official symbol in the Nazi party in Nazi Germany. And today the symbol can be found in use in, well, neo-Nazi circles, particularly occultic and esoteric neo-Nazi circles and neo-pagan circles as well. But anyway, the symbol was developed by Wilhelm Todt, making it a modern symbol consisting of a beam from which protrudes two bowed branches, often coiled into spirals. Take notice that the name Irminsul comes in the medieval sources I've mentioned previously, but there's no description on how it was, how it looked. It just says it was a sacred tree or pillar. Now, the symbology as we see it today, that's modern, using a name from medieval chronicles. The symbol was first proposed by, as I said, a German former pastor, amateur archaeologist, and SS Annenhabe member, as was said before, Wilhelm Todt, in 1929. That's when he proposed the symbol. He claimed the symbol represented the historic Irminsul, an object of veneration among the ancient Saxons, as well as a sacred symbol and tree among the ancient Germanic peoples. Todt's interpretation comes from a relief found on the Axtern stones in the German Axenstein, a sandstone formation near Hornbad, Meinberg in Germany, right, as you can see on the screen. So there's a relief there, right, carved into the rock face that dates to the Middle Ages, to the 12th century, to be more precise. You can see that it follows common themes in the religious art of the period. Take notice, as I show you the relief on the screen, the middle panel shows Christ being taken down from the cross by his disciples. The upper part shows Christ triumphant, holding a banner. The lower panel shows death and possibly the ancient serpent motif, possibly Leviathan defeated at the cross. One of the disciples seems to be standing on some sort of a tree that is bent. Most scholars assume it to be either some kind of chair or a palm tree. What Wilhelm Todt did here was to kind of straighten it out and claimed it to be Irminsul. As I said, several scholars have determined it to be some kind of ornate chair or some variety of vegetation. I agree with the latter, as vegetation motifs are not uncommon in Christian iconography and motifs depicting the Christian myths of Christ, especially taking into consideration that the Old Testament Christ is more akin to a vegetation deity like Dionysus, you know? And due to Wilhelm Todt's claims, the Nazis turned Axenstein into a national monument and used the amateur archaeological evidences to invent a history of the place. And many neo-pagans today still come here each year to celebrate Walpurgis Night. I doubt all of them have far-right inclinations. It's been known that some neo-pagans, particularly in Germany, still use this symbol and are quite attached to this invented history, not because they are neo-Nazis or have far-right political inclinations, but because this symbol has been so popular in modern times as a supposed pagan symbol of ancient Germanic peoples that sort of information just got stuck in there. And some people truly still believe it to be that because they do not, well, question the veracity of such claims. And it's actually interesting to notice that Todt Irminsul was actually relatively obscure among Nazi party symbols because most of their symbology was actually far more common to use Christian iconography and imperial German symbolism. And yet the symbol in question became far more popular post-World War among neo-Nazis and modern pagan groups with far-right political inclinations, becoming a symbol far more important today in specific esoteric circles. Now, I underline once again that there was indeed a sacred tree or pillar to the Old Saxons, which has been called Irminsul, whose term means mighty or great pillar. The Irminsul as a sacred tree or pillar, it was venerated among speakers of Old Saxon, a West Germanic language, right? The object is attested by a number of sources, but the earliest source describes the Irminsul as having been destroyed by Charlemagne's forces in the 8th century. The sources have little to say about the object, about Irminsul, how it was, what it really was, other than its existence and destruction. So we know it existed and it was destroyed. The earliest sources indicate that Irminsul was a tree trunk, a common religious theme, right? Indeed, among ancient Germanic peoples, as well as far older than that, far older religious symbology among Celtic peoples all across Europe. A focus on a sacred tree and sacred groves, right? But the symbol we often see as described as the Irminsul is a vegetation motif in a 12th century relief depicting Christian mythical iconography, hijacked in the late 20s of the 20th century by Wilhelm Teutz, a member of the SS Ahnenjabe. It is important to remember, as was said here in previous videos, that the Völkische movement, which was a pan-German ethno-nationalist movement, played an important role in the development of the Nazi Party and its ideologies, iconographies, and myths. Many aspects of Germanic prehistory and other related topics became tools of the Völkische movement, and the Irminsul was one of them, one of such symbols, where quite a lot of real and imagined ideas of the past fused with late 19th century to mid-20th century nationalist politics in Austria and Germany, mixed with Romanticism and mysticism to express a sense of nationalism and imperialism. As such, the Völkische movement played a significant role in the development of the Nazi Party. Among many other things, it was this movement that was responsible for the use of the swastika symbol within the Nazi Party, and which, well, sadly, as you know, it became a symbol for Nazism. This has been discussed in several previous videos, right? The point here is that Irminsul became an important symbol within the Völkische movement, as Charlemagne was not a popular figure in Völkische subcultures, being described as a murderer, a butcher, killing, destroying, and subjugating the Saxons. It actually became very easy to create post-World War I parallels between Germany and its enemies. For instance, Charlemagne became this monstrous figure for France, like a sort of hero for the French, France being represented by Charlemagne, and Germany represented by the Saxons of old. So Irminsul, for some, was seen as this important religious symbol against the enemies of Germany, particularly against France, which played an important role in Germany's defeat in the First World War. However, despite the great influence of the Völkische movement in the development of symbology and myths within the Nazi Party, the Nazis had mixed feelings concerning Charlemagne, because for Nazi Germany, Charlemagne was actually embraced as some sort of proto-Nazi hero. And how could he not? The Nazi Party rose to power with the assistance and complicity of powerful Protestant and Catholic networks and clergy, and a huge Christian population in a time in Austria's and Germany's history full of political ideologies and propaganda against non-Christians, particularly against Jews. So a Christian figure such as Charlemagne and his campaign to extend his Christian empire was a perfect sort of proto-Nazi hero for Nazi Germany and its ideological and political campaign. Nazi Germany made extensive use of imperial imagery. So it's no coincidence, and very much understandable in this case, in this context, that it employed Christian iconography, symbolism, mysticism, and such religious messaging throughout its extensive propaganda. I mean, Nazi Germany itself held a huge celebration for Charlemagne's 1200th birthday and named an SS division composed of French volunteers after Charlemagne himself, the Waffen-Grenadier-Division der SS Charlemagne, right? This is why Irminsul was not extensively popular in Nazi Germany. It was popular only among some, especially those of the Volkische movement. Even so, it became a symbol that was used on several instances among the Nazis, such as in several Nazi Party publications, just as an example. And this is one of the reasons I have said in past videos, that the black sun symbol, as an example, is not a pagan symbol. It is the recycling of older iconography, particularly used in medieval Christendom, giving to it 12 S runes, as in representation of the 12 disciples of Christ. Despite the number 12 also having some importance in a few pagan cultures of the past, particularly of Southern Europe, the idea behind the black sun symbol is Nazi mysticism focused on Christian myths and religious themes. The SS employed a variety of symbols derived from Volkische interpretations of the ancient Germanic ideas created by pseudoscience and amateur archaeology that served as Nazi propaganda, alongside imagery from ancient Greece and newly invented symbolism, including Toyd's Irminsul. His Irminsul. And several Volkische occultist figures held notable positions in the SS and promoted a variety of fragmented and very inconsistent theories for their own version of true Christianity, not paganism, but true Christianity, as they viewed, linked to ancient Atlantis inhabited by a monotheistic Aryan race. Eventually, Himmler himself established the SS Hananjabe, the pseudoscientific community spoken previously, from which Wilhelm Toyd belonged to, and within it proposed the Irminsul symbol, and it became the very symbol of the SS Hananjabe itself. I mean, some people still often still speak of Nordic paganism and give extensive speeches on pagan symbols such as the Black Sun and the Irminsul, and expressing all sorts of theories on the pagan origins of such symbols. But this type of Nordic paganism they speak of is the one as has been created by the Nazis. These are not pagan symbols, but it was the use of pagan symbology, pagan terms, pagan myths and pagan religious iconography and symbols, as well as Christian symbols and iconography, to convey Christian imperialistic ideologies. Much of what people think about Nordic paganism isn't paganism at all, but the use of pagan and Christian motifs to convey Christian imperialistic ideology by the Nazi Party of Nazi Germany. But well, you do whatever you want with this information, I'm giving it to you. My dear friends, thank you so much for watching. Well, see you on the next video. And as always, tack för idag. Thanks for today. Obrigado por hoje. Until we meet again, my dear friends.